Okay, so we are on 18b4, right at the beginning of 18b4, and Yod Ches Amud Beis, 6 lines up from the bottom, Tan Rabbanan. So, just to recap, our Mishnah said on Yod Ches Amud Beis, if witnesses said this is our handwriting, meaning we signed this, but we were forced, or we were not yet bar mitzvah, or we were related to one of the parties involved, they're believed that they are not believed, meaning we believe them that they were disqualified to sign. But if there's witnesses that it was their signature, or the Beis Din had a star that had been verified with the same signatures, and the Dayanim looked and the signatures match, we said this works similar to a signature card in a bank, then these witnesses are not believed because their signatures are verified on the star already. So just quickly, the Gemara said, Rami Bar Chama says, this is only said if they forced us to lose our jobs. Let's say it was because for monetary reasons we were forced to sign. But if they said we're going to kill you unless you sign, then they are believed. So Rabbi says, what's going on here? Once you give testimony, you're not allowed to amend your testimony. So the fact that they signed the star, that was testimony. Now that they said my signature was under duress, that's like a different testimony, but they can't change what they already said. So the Gemara said that this statement was not on the first case of the Bryce when they said we were forced, but it was on the second case where there was already a verified star. Excuse me, it wasn't on the second case, rather it was on the first case. They are believed. Rami Bar Chama says that's only that they're believed when they said we were being forced to be killed or sign. Meaning the original statement of Rami Bar Chama said this is only true when they said we were forced to sign for monetary reasons. So, for example, they were going to lose their jobs. But he flipped the statement. He said, this is when did the Mishnah say in the first half that they are believed? That's only if they were threatened with their lives, unless they signed. Then they're allowed to amend their testimony. But if it was anything less than that, they wouldn't be believed because a person cannot make himself into a rasha. A person isn't believed if he makes himself to rasha. And it seems that for him to say, I signed a star falsely, makes him into a rasha. The fact that he signed the star falsely it's like giving false testimony, so that's an avera. So we wouldn't believe him to say that I signed it falsely. But under duress, you have a permission. When we saw, on Daf Gimel, we spoke a little bit about the 3 cardinal sins. When they say kill you or violate a mitzvah, normally you should violate the avera and be alive to do more mitzvahs. So if they said sign this star or I'll kill you, you're supposed to sign the star. But because it was under duress, so we believe them that they said that because then they didn't do an avera. If it was just for monetary reasons, so then they shouldn't have signed. Tan Rabbanan, we learned in a brisa. So this is now 18b4. Ein amanon leposlo divi Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says that the witnesses are not believed to say that their signature was not okay. Divi Rabbi Meir, this is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. But Chachamim omrim namanim, but the Chachamim say that they are believed. So Rashi says this is talking about the first case of the Mishnah. If the witnesses said it is our signatures, but we were forced to sign, so Rabbi Meir rejects. Rabbi Meir argues with that halacha in the Mishnah, and obviously the Mishnah is in accordance with the Chachamim in this brisa that they are believed. So Bishlam al Rabbanan ki tamayhu shep hasosher hu shep hapelahater. The reason that the Rabbanan believe him is because just like you can invalidate something, if you could say something, the mouth that disqualifies you for something is the same mouth that qualifies you for something. Meaning, since we would believe you if it was no good, we also believe you if it was good. El Rabbi Meir, my taima. So why does Rabbi Meir not use the principle here of hapesha aser or hapesha hiter and believe them? So bishlam absule eidus milvagufe mekar medek daik u'mechasim. So meaning our Mishnah mentioned 3 different cases where the witnesses said that they were not proper witnesses. One is they were forced. One is that they were not bar mitzvah yet. They were too young. And the third case is that they were related. So in regard to the case where they say we were related, again, Rashi says that it's a case they were related, but they were disqualified from legal reasons to be a witness. So Rashi said either because they were related either to each other or to the one of the parties in the document. There is a Gemara somewhere else. I mean, it's in Makos and it's in somewhere else, that if they're related to the guarantor, let's say the person who's lending the money and the person who's borrowing the money, they're not related to either of them, but the guarantor of the loan they are related to, or one of the witnesses related to, there's a different Gemara that says you're not allowed to be the witness, because if the loan will then go to the guarantor, then it would be a testimony with a relative. So just FYI about that. So if in regard to Psule Eidos, if they say we weren't qualified because we were related or whatever, Melva Gufayo Meikara Medik Daikum Achasam, the lender himself would investigate, Medik Daik is to be exact, and he only had them signed once he figured that they were eligible to sign and they were kosher to sign. Ketanim Nami, and also in the case of where the witnesses said it was our signature, but we weren't bar mitzvah yet, because he would hold like Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, the Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, because Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, we turn the page, Chazaka ein ha'edim chosme al ashtar ela im kein nasa begado. There's a chazaka, a presumption, that witnesses who are signed must be bar mitzvah already. Elanusim my time. So there's reasons for Rabbi Meir to not agree, to not believe the witnesses if they say we weren't bar mitzvah, because it goes against the principle. People make sure that the witnesses are bar mitzvah before they sign a shtar. And if they say we were related, if there was a written loan document, the borrower would have made sure that the people who were signing were kosher to sign. So the question against why doesn't Rabbi Meir believe the witnesses because of hapesha sha'as or hapesha hiter, at least in regard to the fact where they say we were forced to sign. So Amrav Chistak Savar Rabbi Meir Eidim Sha'amr Lahem Chismu Sheker Valtaru Yehargo Val Yechsimu Yesheker. Rav Chisda says that Rabbi Meir holds that if someone told the witnesses either sign falsely and don't get killed, meaning either sign it or we'll kill you. It's a little bit question why the Gemara uses it in the indirect sense. Sign falsely and don't get killed. So the halacha is they have to get killed and not sign falsely. So it seems to be a bit of a this halacha would have to be understood. But Rabbi Meir holds, according to this answer, that Yeharg Vayavar would apply to signing falsely. So just on a very basic level, just to give an explanation, is that there's well, I don't know if this is a good enough explanation, but no, that's not a good enough explanation. Okay, we'll just leave it as a question. Better to have a good question than a bad answer. So Amarle Rava Hashtu Ilu Asula Kaman Lamluche Amrinan Lahu Zilu Chusuma Velosik Talunun. How could you say that? If they would come us and ask us to answer their question, we would tell them sign it and don't get killed. The Amarmar, because we learned in a Brisa, in Sanhedrin, it's from the Sugya of Yeharg Vayavor. There's nothing that stands in front of a danger to your life, except avodah zarah or incest or adultery or bloodshed. So if it's get killed or violate one of these three, you have to get killed. But anything else, you don't have to get killed. So why would Rabbi Meir hold that it's better to be killed than sign falsely? It doesn't make sense. So hasher dechasmu amrinan lahu. Dechasmu amrinan lahu amai chasimu. Now that they signed, can we tell them, why did you sign? It's too late already. Rather, the reason for Rabbi Meir that he doesn't believe the witnesses when they say we were forced is because of Rav Huna Amarav. If someone admits that he wrote this document, you do not need to verify the signatures of the witnesses. So since the shtar is kosher without the witness's statement, the fact that they say we were forced to sign does not disqualify the document. Now, I don't know if I mentioned last time. I don't think I did, but it came up a couple days later. But someone I know told me that they ran out of money and they had to borrow money from a Gamach loan fund in Me'asharm or Geula, somewhere around there. And when they borrow the money, the borrower is the one who writes the contract. And he didn't know very much Hebrew, so he basically said that I wrote Ani Chayav Mea or something. I owe you $100 or something. That's all he was able to write in Hebrew. So I don't know how it works in all, and I don't know if there's witnesses or this or that, but according to what that Gamach did, the borrower would always write the document. So if you would agree, yes, I wrote this document, then it's kosher even without us verifying the witnesses on it. So that's why Rabbi Meir. So it's a very specific case that Rabbi Meir doesn't believe the witnesses later, and that's because the contract was kosher without the Edom. Amar Gufa. We learned before. Amar Rav Huna. Amar Rav Moda B'Shtar Shekasva in Tzarech L'Kaimo. So the principle we just said that if you agreed that you wrote this shtar, you don't need to verify the witnesses. Amar Rav Nachman. Gnuve Lamalach. Why are you being like a robber over here? Meaning what? If you hold like Rabbi Meir, just say the halacha is like Rabbi Meir. Meaning, for whatever reason, Rav Nachman felt that Rav Huna was making his own principle up, but really the principle was already established, I guess, as Rabbi Meir's opinion. So Rashi says, if you hold like Rabbi Meir, just say we're passing to like Rabbi Meir, and don't make it sound like this principle is a freestanding principle. Amar le, Umar hechis virle. He says, well, what do you hold like? Amar le, ki asu. Oh, I forgot to mention. So today is my father-in-law's yahrzeit. So the share is for the Eloi Nishmas Mordechai ben Shalom, Mickey Solomon. Amar le ki asu lekaman ledina. So he says when people come in front of us for a din Torah, zilu kaimu sh'terachayu v'chusu ledina. So we tell them, if you're coming for this, get the witnesses to verify that's them, and then come for the Beis Din. Meaning we do not agree with this principle. So he's saying that we do not paskin like what you're saying. You're saying that if someone admits that they signed the document, you don't need to be verified. No, our policy is that the documents always have to be verified. So Rashi says, because what about the question? If someone says, yes, that's my handwriting. So the thing is that he might say, I already paid it, but you didn't give it back to me. Because normally the person who has the shtar, the document, is the one who can collect. So if there's a loan document, the lender has the document, because he could say, I lent the person money. Once it would be repaid, then you'd give it back to the borrower. The borrower would rip it up because it has no purpose anymore. But just because you could see, yes, that's my handwriting, but I paid it back already. So because he could make that claim, so we don't believe this loan document unless it's been verified that the witnesses signed it, that it really happened. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Ha'omer shtar amana huzeh eino ne'aman. So a shtar amana is basically a line of credit. So meaning, Rashi says that the shtar amana is you didn't lend anything or you didn't borrow anything, but you wrote it and gave it to the to the lender, that if you would need to borrow money, you can borrow it. And the borrower, the potential borrower, is believing, I guess that's the word amana from emuna, I have belief that you're not going to collect for me unless I actually take the loan. So that's why I'm saying that the shtar amana seems to be a line of credit. But it's a line of credit, and the potential lender already has the document that I borrowed the money. Even though I didn't borrow it yet, I'm just using it as a line of credit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's say that there was that Ruvain produces this document. Shimon owes him $100. So Shimon says, I don't owe you anything because that was a line of credit, and I never took the $100 from you. We just wrote this up as a line of credit in case I wanted to, and you weren't supposed to. I was believing you not to produce it unless I actually lent it, unless I borrowed it. So if Shimon would say this was only a line of credit, Eino Naaman, he's not believed. So the Gemara says, Dekamar Man, who's the one who says that it was only a line of credit, not an actual loan? Ilem Dekamar Lova Pshita Kal Kamine. So if the borrower said it, of course he's trying to get out of a loan, a debt that he has. So of course he's not believed. The Elatika Amar Malve, and if the lender said this was a line of credit, Tavo Alav Bracha, he should be blessed for being in a situation where he could collect money, and by him making this claim, he's not collecting the money. Meaning he has a shtar that says Shimon owes me $100. And he says, no, it's not a valid shtar because it's only a line of credit and I never lent it to him. Why shouldn't he be believed? He's doing I mean, obviously it's the right thing, but he's doing a nice thing by admitting that the money wasn't, that he never lent out the money, so it doesn't have to be repaid for him. So what's the chiddush that we're saying that if someone says that this was only a line of credit, not a real loan document, he's believed? So Ella to Ka'amri Adim. So maybe it's the witnesses saying. So the witnesses are saying, we signed this document, but it was only a line of credit. It wasn't for an actual loan. But if the Beis Din has a copy of their signatures from another shtar, the Beis Din can verify their signatures by themselves. They don't need the witnesses to come and say, yes, that's our signature. And we learned in the Mishnah, if the Beis Din can verify the signatures without the witnesses, then it's considered verified. Or once the Dayanim do it, it's verified. And we don't need the Eidim to tell us anything. So in such a situation, any claim that the witnesses would give isn't believed. It would be similar to them saying we weren't bar mitzvah yet. That the Mishnah says that in some cases they're believed, some cases they're not. So and if the Beis Din doesn't have any other verified shtaros with their signatures on it, so then it's not verified. So then we would need to listen to what the witnesses say. So how come we don't believe them? Meaning the statement was, Rav Yehuda Marav said, if someone who says that this was only a line of credit document, not an actual loan, is not believed. So if it's a witness where we needed the witness, why wouldn't we believe? According to the Mishnah, they'd be allowed to expand on their testimony in this situation.
How could they manage a line of credit at that? This kind of.
So it's what we would call a line of credit. But when we have a line of credit, let's say I have a $100,000 line of credit. If I want to borrow $25,000, I can borrow $25,000. If I want to borrow $80,000, I can borrow $80,000. If I want to borrow all $100,000, I can borrow all $100,000. In that case, he say so the case is that Shimon went and said, Ruvain, I might need to borrow $100, but I'm not going to know when it's going to be last minute. So can we just write the shtar now? And in case I actually borrow it, then
This money has to be available anytime for Shimon to borrow.
Yeah.
But the physical money, it's not credit card.
Right.
Physical money.
Right. I might need to borrow $100. So can you put a bag of silver aside for me in case I need to borrow it? Now, the problem with that is then if it's you're right. A line of credit is credit. It's not real money. In those days, you were borrowing real money. And if the way I said it's a bag of gold or a bag of silver, the guy should see, do I still have that bag of silver or not? Okay. So he obviously didn't literally count out the money, but they prepared the documents in case in a rush. It's a line of credit in regard to its potential being borrowed. But in that case, it was either going to borrow all $100 or not borrow anything. Does that make it a little bit more understandable?
Yeah.
So Siman Ba'ash. So there's going to be three answers. And to remember who said what, we have this mnemonic Beis Aleph Shin. So Amar Rava. So the Beis seems to be for Rava. We don't do Reish for Rava, but a Beis. Now Ba'esh also the word would mean, well, Ba'esh could mean in a fire. Va'ash could be smelly, because in Parshas Va'era, I think when the frogs died in the Mak of Tzfardea, Va'ash Yaor. So the waters were disgusting and stinky from all the dead. So I don't know which what if the mnemonic means something more than just the letters of the Amoraim. So Amarava la'olam dekamar love Rav Huna. So the reason when we say it's not believed, if he says it was only a line of credit, it is a case where the borrower said that. So of course the borrower would make a claim to get himself off. So why would we think that he might be believed? Because of a statement of Rav Huna to Amar Rav Huna Amarav, Moda b'shtar shekasvei tzarach l'kaimo. Because Rav Huna says if you admit that you wrote the shtar, it doesn't need to be verified. So meaning we said we tried to explain Rabbi Meir's opinion with this a few lines ago, and we didn't. But according to Rav Huna, the lova has a certain amount of credibility. So since he has credibility to not need to verify the shtar, we might think that he has a power similar to the witnesses who would need to verify their own shtar. Because remember, if the witnesses are needed to verify their own shtar, they might say, "Oh, we were forced to sign. We believe them." So here, because Rava is saying that this statement goes according to Rav Huna, follows Rav Huna, and Rav Huna says that if the borrower admits that this is my handwriting, it doesn't need to be verified. So maybe it would be the same status as witnesses who are coming to verify their own signature, and they should have credibility to amend to a certain degree the situation about which they signed. So Rav Yehuda Amarav has to tell us, no, even though it is similar to a fact that his admission of saying I this is my handwriting certifies the document, but they do not have the right, like the witnesses, to amend the situation and say, oh, I did sign it, I did write it, but it was only a line of credit. They're not believed. That's why Rav Yehuda Amarav needs to tell us they're not believed. That's Rava's answer. Amar Abai Amar Liolam da Amar Malvel Chugon Shechav Lachem Rabbi Nassan. Abai says it's the lender saying. So if a lender says this is only a line of credit, I'm not owed any money, so that's a nice thing for the borrower. He has a potential, for the lender, he has potential to be making this money, and he's saying, no, I don't deserve it, so I don't pay. But it's a case where his admission is going to be bad to someone else. Rabbi Nassan, according to the halacha, Rabbi Nassan, the Amar Rabbi Nassan, the Tanya, Rabbi Nassan Omer, when they're in Rabbi Nassan says, Minay lenosh b'chavero maneh, b'chaver b'chavero. How do you know if someone has a claim for $100 against his friend? B'chavero b'chavero. And so let's take different names. Yisachar owes Zvulun $100, and Zvulun owns Gad $100, or owns, let's say, Levi. Because Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun. Okay, so let's say again. Zvulun owes Yisachar $100, and Yisachar owes Yehuda $100. Minayin shemotzin mizev v'notzin lazeh. So how could we know that Yehuda can collect $100 directly from Yisachar? Meaning Yehuda didn't lend any money to Yisachar. But this halach is basically the transitive property. If A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. So the halacha is, so Reb Nassan says that if Zvulun owes Yisachar money and Yisachar owes Yehuda money, Yehuda can collect directly from Zvulun, even though he's not the creditor of Zvulun. The pasuk says, and you should give it to that who is guilty to him. So in this case, it's not necessarily even though Yehuda doesn't owe, Zvulun doesn't owe the money directly to Yehuda, but Yehuda can bypass Yisachar and go straight to Zvulun and get the money. So in this case, Ruvain, who was the alleged lender, he owed money to Yosef. So if this star would have been a valid star and Shimon owes money to Ruvain, then Ruvain would have money and Yosef would then collect it from Ruvain. So in this case, according to Rabbi Nassan, if Shimon would owe money to Ruvain, Yosef would collect it directly from Shimon. So in this case, the Malveh, the lender, Ruvain, is really like a borrower, because if this loan, the loan about this document is saying is really true, someone else is going to collect money that he owes someone else. Because if this star is true, he's going to be out the $100, even though it says that Shimon owes me $100, but Yosef is going to take the money from Shimon because Reuven himself owes money to Yosef, to another person. Rav Ashi Amar. Rav Ashi says, so again, the middle one was Abaye, whose name starts with an aleph, and then Rav Ashi, his name also starts with an aleph, so the mnemonic was a shin for Ashi. La'olam tekamri edim. So this was a case where really the witnesses said that it was a line of credit. And it's a case where the Beis Din doesn't have their signature on anything else that's already verified. So we need the witnesses themselves to tell us that it's their handwriting. And so when you had asked a few lines above, why wouldn't we believe the Edim? Rav Kahana. The reason that we wouldn't believe the Edim is because of the halacha of Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana because Rav Kahana says it's prohibited to have a loan document for a line of credit. Injustice should not dwell in your tent. So even though the pasuk in Eov is not talking about anything, is not directly talking about this, to have a potential star that you can claim money unlawfully from someone else is an avla. It's an injustice or an iniquity. So you're not allowed to have this star in the first place. So therefore, we believe the Edim to say that it wasn't a real. So you might think that because you couldn't have it, the witnesses might be believed. So still, the Rabbi Yehuda Amarav says no, even though the witnesses are saying it was only a line of credit, we don't believe them. Because if we believe them, then it ends up that a different Avera took place. Not that they did an Avera, but that the potential loan lender would have had an illegal document. Because with this line of credit, he can claim that someone owes him money, and really the guy doesn't owe him any money. So it's not a proper thing to do. The Amar Rav Sheshes Breder Rav Edi, and Rav Sheshes, the son of Rav Edi, said, Shema minad midu Rav Kahana, Edim Shem Ramana Hayidvarenu Ein Emanim. From Rav Kahana's statement that witnesses who say that our word was only for a line of credit, they're not believed. My time, why not? Kaven da avlahu, since the entire loan would have been an injustice, witnesses wouldn't sign on something that's not true like this. So if they would say that we signed this illegal document, they're admitting to doing an avera, and we don't believe someone to say that they did an avera. Now, I just want to point out here, no, we're not asking people to do an avera, but sometimes you say, like if you would say, ask someone, will you be a witness for whatever? And they say no, don't assume that you're not supposed to assume that they're saying it. Or let me say it differently. If someone says, will you be an aide for me at my wedding? and they say, no, I'm not Shomer Shabbos, whatever, So, so they're making an incriminating statement by saying this. So, I mean, obviously, if they're not kosher Edom for a reason like that, they wouldn't know the halacha. But it's just to say, no, thank you. It's very nice and a high honor, but I'm not interested. You don't have to give the reason why. Derech Eretz. And the reason I mention it is because I saw this in regard to something else, but it's true in regard to Purim. In some places, people are saying, here, have a l'chaim with me. And some people say no. And they push, have a l'chaim with me. And they say no. So how come you're pushing someone to have a l'chaim? Because it could be, this is something that a therapist wrote. Maybe that person is an alcoholic and they stay away from all alcohol. So from the fact that you're trying to push them to have a l'chaim, it's very bad for them. So if you offer that something to them and they say no, just respect it and don't ask any questions, just move on. It doesn't mean that if they say no, they're an alcoholic. It's just saying, so there's some derech eretz here and with a half a bit of seichel also here. This idea of ein edim masma, well, it's not exactly relevant, but okay. So now we're going to learn something else from that pasuk about not having an iniquity in your tent. I'm Rabbi Ben Levi. So if I lent money and the person, so I had an IOU in my possession, and then the guy paid me back, I'm not allowed to keep that in my possession because then I could potentially produce it again and get paid a second time. So from the same pasuk, you should an inequity should not live or dwell in your tent. So it's a slightly different case, but it's a similar idea. If you have a document that would allow you to unlawfully get money from someone else, it's an injustice and shouldn't be in your house. You're not allowed to have it. The Marava Mishmei Rav Amri in Eretz Yisrael, the West, they said in the name of Rav, Im Aven Biyadcha Harchikeu. So Aven with an aleph is something that's iniquity. No, it's not as bad as avla. Oh, Aven and avla, they're different words. Never mind. Because one's a nun, one's a lam. So let's see. Art Scroll says if there's perversion, I don't know if Aven is really perversion. If there's perversion in your hand, distance yourself from it. Zesh darmanu shtar pasim. This is the line of credit or shtar pasim, which is, and someone's asking about mincha time.
That's
5:35, yeah. So this is a shtar, this line of credit, and also a shtar pasim. So shtar pasim means that you're buttering someone up for something, and so so this means is that meaning I wanted to look rich, so I asked someone to write a document that they owe me $1,000. It's like lahavdil, I don't know, not lahavdil, but nowadays to get a good credit, you actually have to. One way of having good credit is by inflating your assets. And another way of inflating your credit but it's not inflating, is if you carry a balance for a while on your credit cards, the fact that you're not going under, it makes it look like you're able to afford having credit. So they give you a bigger credit. So this is a case is that you wanted to appear richer, that you have more assets. You didn't really have the asset, but the asset is that guy owes me $1,000. Once he pays me back, I must be really rich if I could afford to lend him $1,000. Because this is one big pasuk in Iyov. I see something in your Gemara. In my little Gemara, there's a typo. The article is missing something, but look if it fits it. Oops, sorry. Sorry. So if there's one type of problem, distance it, and don't let iniquity live in your tent. So there's two things in that pasuk. So in Eretz Yisrael, they said that Rav said the first half of the pasuk is don't have this fake a line of credit document or a fake loan document to make yourself look richer, that someone else owes you $1,000. You can't have a paid up document in your possession. So meaning all these types of things, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi had mentioned you can't have the shtar perua from this half of the pasuk, and Rav also said this in the first. But basically, there's no one disagrees the fact that the line of credit is not a good thing to have around, because if you produce it, you'll get money that's not lawfully yours. There just happens to be a difference of opinion if it's learned out of the first half of this pasuk in Eov or the second half of the pasuk in Eov. And the pasuk in Eov is not talking about loaned at all, but it's a drasha that they made from that pasuk. Manda Amar Shtar Perua, according to the one that a Shtar Perua is a avla, is an inequity or an injustice. Kosh Kain Shtar Amana. Certainly a loan for a line of credit you're not allowed to keep also. Manda Amar Shtar Amana, Aval Shtar Perua lo, Dezimna Demashli Pshite Desafra. But according to that the opinion that the inequity is the line of credit, you're actually allowed to keep a paid off shtar, because sometimes the lender keeps it as a collateral for paying the scribes to write the document in the first place. So it's true the loan was paid back, but the borrower has to also pay that fee. And if they didn't pay that fee, the lender is allowed to keep the shtar, not because he's going to produce it a second time to get full payment, but it's just his way of making sure that the lender paid off the scribe for the fees for drafting the documents. Nowadays, we would have lawyers draft documents, but in those days, you would have the sofer write it up. Itmar, we learned Sefer She'ena Muga, if you have a Sefer Torah that has mistakes in it, Amar Rav Ami at Shoshim Yomot Shel Hashoso. If it's had mistakes for up to 30 days, you can keep it. Mikan ve'elach asur l'hashoso. After that, you're not allowed to keep it. Mishum shenemar al tishkon ba'alcha avla. You can't have an inequity in your house. So meaning this has nothing to do with the monetary shtar, but it's saying a halacha that if you have a Sefer Torah that's not kosher, you have to fix it within 30 days. Now, for whatever reason, nowadays, sometimes shuls have a Sefer Torah that has mistakes for a long time, and they keep. So maybe the heter is we put the gartel outside the mantle if it's puzzle, so everyone knows it's puzzle. So maybe now also, I don't know how many Sefer Torah used to be kept in shuls. This pasuk says, this brisis or whatever statement was said, you're not allowed to have it in your house. So I don't know if a shul is different than a house, but the universal practice in shuls, if you have a Sefer Torah that's puzzle, you put the gartel on the outside of the Torah so everyone knows it's puzzle. So no one would think it's kosher. Amar Rav Nachman said, Eidim Shamar Amana Hayud Varenu, witnesses who said that we signed this document, but it was only for a line of credit. We did not see the loan take place. Einemanim, they're not believed. But moda hayud varenu nemanim. So what's a moda? So Rashi says that this is a shtar of a bill of sale, but the witness is saying is that the seller was forced to sell it to the buyer. They're also not believed. So Rashi says their verbal declaration can't undo what was written in the written document. So the way Art Scroll says it, Modahi Dvarenu is saying that the seller is saying, I really don't agree with this, and I'm selling it to you under protest. So they call it a notification of non-intent. That the owner demonstrated that he was being coerced to sell and made the disclaimer he didn't want the sale to be effective. So that's, I don't know if that's a legal term, but it's the same thing that Rashi says. It's just a slightly different the word. So ein amanu, they're not believed. Mar Ravashi Amar Amana Haydvarein Nemanim. Mar, the son of Ravashi, says if they say that we signed on a line of credit, then they're not believed. Modahi Dvarein Nemanim. If they say that we signed on something that was forced and the owner, the seller clearly didn't want to, he was protesting about it, they are believed. My time, why is he believed? Hi nitan likasev, the high lo nitan likasev. Because to write a bill of sale, even though when the seller is opposed to it, we are allowed to write a document like that. But to write a line of credit document, we're not allowed to write it in the first place. So if the Adam said that we signed on an illegal document, they're making themselves Rishayim, so they're not believed. But since this bill of sale, there's nothing wrong with making a bill of sale, but it's possible that the seller is kind of being forced and really doesn't want to. The witnesses were allowed to sign something like that. So if we need them to testify later to verify their signatures, and they tell us you can't that wasn't a real sale, then the witnesses would be believed. Rabbi asked Rav Nachman, Tanai Hayud Verenu Mao. So this is a big sugya, which we're not obviously going to discuss the whole sugya because we have to do our blot a week, but they said that there was a condition, a stipulation in this agreement, and we don't know if that stipulation or condition was met or not. I mean, it could be a silly, well, let's put it this way. I don't know the proper terms, but let's say it's some type of option contract. If the Dow Jones hits 28,000, then, whatever, then I'm selling my field. Or if the Dow Jones hits 40,000, I'm selling my field. That's an option contract, right? In the stock market, I don't know exactly, but or it could be a silly share. You'd say if you do 100 jumping jacks, I'll lend you $100. So tonight could be something. It could be something very serious. It could be something not serious, but there was a condition. So the witnesses are saying, we know that that this was written, but we don't know if the condition was fulfilled or not. So in regard to the fact when they said that either it was a line of credit or the seller was selling under protest, the things that the witnesses are saying now, they're uprooting the shtar. So just like we can't uproot their verbal statement, can't uproot the written shtar. Also, when they say there was a t'nai and we don't know if the t'nai was fulfilled, that's also uprooting the shtar. So their words now can't undo the shtar. And according to that logic, they're not believed if they say that there was a t'nai. Odilma, or maybe t'nai milsa harisihu. Maybe a condition is a completely separate thing from the shtar. And this is mentioned in Achronim for other things too. Let's say if I says Harei Mekudeshes Li, if I write a shtar to a woman and say you'll be Mekudeshes to me if you do 100 jumping jacks. So if she does 100 jumping jacks, and so we're married, is it considered that the original contract that I wrote was held in abeyance, and then the jumping jacks was like, it's like the water holding back the dam, and then once she did the 100 jumping jacks, the original shtar that I wrote takes place? Or when I make a t'nai, is it like there's two different things going on? That if you do that I wrote the shtar, but if the t'nai happens, it's like a new action coming place. After you do the t'nai, there's a new kinyan or a new whatever taking place then. Actually, that's not the right pshat. Rashi says Because if the Gemara was making that a thing, the Achronim wouldn't be arguing about it. Rashi says that the Tanai is considered still the Achronim talk about this too. Is a Tanai an intrinsic part of the star, or is it an external part of the star? So if a condition is intrinsic, if they testify about the star itself, they're testifying about the Tanai also. But if it's an external thing, they can testify about the star and say the Tanai is an external thing. We don't know about that. So maybe a Tanai is an external thing, and therefore they would be believed to say we're not that it was a star, because it's a fundamentally different mechanism than to say it was a line of credit. To say it's a line of credit is saying the star that you see in front of you is not true. Well, it's either there or it's not. It can't be either way. But a Tanai, you could say if a Tanai is an external mechanism of the star, we're not, with the star that's there is true. There was an external thing, and we don't know about that. So perhaps they have they have credibility. They have namanos about that. Amar le ki yasu lekaman ladina amrinan lehu zilu kaimu tunaichu v'chusu ladina. So we tell them, if you have any conditions in your documents, you have to meet all the conditions before you come to Beis Din. So by the time it comes to Beis Din, all the claims have to be fulfilled, and therefore, if the witnesses would say that there was a claim, they're not believed, because we know that Tanai had to be believed. Eight Omer Tanai, eight Omer Ein Tanai. What if the two witnesses are in conflict? One of them says that there was a condition with this contract, and the other one says there was not a condition. Amra Papa Tar Travayu Bishtar Amalia Kamisadi. Both of them are testifying about a good kosher star. And the one who's saying that there's a condition is only one witness. And one witness isn't believed when there's two witnesses. So therefore, if one witness says that it was a condition, he's not believed, and we believe that there is no condition. That there's no condition. Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua ihachi afilu travayu nami. Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua says, according to your logic, even if both witnesses would say that there was a condition, you shouldn't believe them, because the star that's in front of us say that that's true, and who knows anything about the Tanai? We should ignore the fact that they said a Tanai. Ella amrinan hani l'makar saduse ka'asu. But we're saying that the reason they say there's a Tanai is because they are trying to uproot their testimony. They're trying to say that the star is not a good star. Hainami l'makar sadaisu kasi. So this case where the witnesses are saying that really there was a Tanai, we're just saying that they're trying to give an opposite testimony to what they testified before, because they signed on a star and said that so-and-so owed certain money. So that means that they testified that this, whatever contract, this event or the sale, this loan, whatever, did take place. And now that they're saying it was a Tanai, they're saying it doesn't take place. They're saying two conflicting things. Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua, but we paskin like Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua that we allow them to say that, and we're changing what they said. Oh, this is saying that there were different witnesses saying that. So whatever is true about the two witnesses right now, the original, so meaning Reuven and Shimon signed on the star. Yisachar and Zvulun came and said there was a Tanai. So we don't believe Yisachar and Zvulun as opposed to what was written on the star, signed on the star. Taner Rabbanan, we learned in the Brayso, what if we had two people signed on the star, but they both died? So they're not around to, and we don't have their signatures on any other staros. So we don't know if it's a valid signature or not. We know that the signatures are valid. It's not forged. but we know that they were being forced. Or katanim hayu, psuli eidos hayu, re'elu nemanim. So meaning they're not saying that we were forced because these people are dead, but Yosef and Binyamin can't come and said that when Reuben and Shimon signed on this star, they did sign on it, but they were katanim at the time, or they were forced. Yosef and Binyamin are believed. But if we have other witnesses that it was their testimony, that it was their signatures, and there's no other conflict, like they were being forced, whatever, or if the Beis Din had their signatures from another star that was already verified, from a star that would previously someone raised a complaint about a star, so the Beis Din had already verified their signatures on that, so it's being like the signature card. It's being verified against a valid signature card. In this case, it's a star that was already verified. But Yosef and Binyamin, who came and said that these witnesses, it is their signature, but they were forced, Yosef and Binyamin are not believed. So the star is considered a kosher. Whatever is written in the star, we believe that that's true. Are we allowed to collect like as if it's a completely kosher star? Now, ma'alya, I translate as kosher. Ma'alya just means it's a good, perfectly good star. V'amai treyu train in who? Why should we allow to do it? Because the star is saying that Shimon owes money. Now, these witnesses are saying Shimon doesn't owe money, but the witnesses were forced to sign something that was fraudulent. So that should be a case of two witnesses against two witnesses. So we have two witnesses saying conflicting things. We don't know who to believe. So the halacha is, the money just stays in whoever has. It's an unactionable star because it's conflicting testimonies. So Rav Sheshes says, also Meres, Hakchashas Tchilas Hazamahi. So when two groups of witnesses are saying conflicting things, that's called hakchasha. So it's a conflict. There's a halacha of Eidim Zomimim, the plotting witnesses. So plotting witnesses is not that the witnesses say conflicting things, but if two witnesses say that Usher killed someone, and two other witnesses say, we don't know if Usher killed anyone or not, but we know that you two can't be witnesses because you were with us in Arizona when you claim this thing happened. So we don't know what Usher did or didn't do, but we know that you weren't there to say it. That's Eidim Zomim. So Rav Shesha says that Hakchasha, a conflict of the witnesses' stories, that's the beginning of Hazama. So as Rashi says, no, he doesn't say anything here. So if it's hakchasha, regular hakchasha, according to the regular understanding, if the witnesses are in conflict, we don't believe any of them. But if, according to the principle that hakchasha is the beginning of hazama, we do believe it because once there's a conflict, it gives us an opportunity to say, does anyone know any testimony about these two guys? Because maybe we'll find that they were in Tzfas for on vacation. They were visiting the artists over there. So maybe they weren't there to witness this loan that was taking place in Dubai or in Paris. So because Hakchash is the beginning of Hazama, just because there's a conflict doesn't mean that we throw out everyone's testimony and we just go back to status quo. The case stays open pending a different group of witnesses telling us that no, the witness who said that is not believed because they were with us somewhere else, so they couldn't have you want a more chumash? There's another one in the big shul.
Gemara goes on to say like like that's the reason is
right. So that's the next line. Yeah,
that's how.
And just like you can't have Eidim Zomimim unless the witnesses are there. Lahavdil in the Constitution, you have the right to face your accuser. So just like we can't have hazama unless the witnesses are there, you can't have a conflict unless the witnesses are here. And because in this case we said the witnesses died, these witnesses are saying that the previous witnesses died. There's no you can't face your lahavdil, face your accuser. So in this case, there is no status of hakasha because of this analogy between hakasha and hazama. So if you can't have hazama, which is the potential to say you were with us and somewhere else, so what you're saying can't be, must be made up. So we can't even have when there's a conflict of witnesses. That's only if they're both in front of us. But in this case, because the two witnesses who are assigned are dead now, they're not there. We can't even have a hakasha. But there we're going to see that's not so posh. That's not so simple. Amrle Rav Nachman ilu have a kamana machishin who have a hakasha v'lohei mashgichin behu to have leidus mukchashes. So Rav Nachman says, I don't understand. If the signers were with us and then there was a conflict because other witnesses were saying something else, then havi hakasha v'lohavi mashgichin behu. Then it would be a conflict, but we wouldn't let the signatures, the two witnesses who signed, we wouldn't allow whatever's written on that loan to take place, the Havile Edus Mukchashes, because their testimony is in conflict. Their testimony, which was is witnesses on a star, is in conflict with what we're being told right now by another group. But but now that the witnesses are dead, they're not here. The Ilu Havu Lekaman Dilma Havu Modelahu. If the witnesses would have been here, maybe they would have admitted. Mehamni, it's better. How can we say that they're not being here is better than they're not being here is better than if they are here? So Elam Rav Nachman says Uki Trey Lahadi Trey Uki Mamon B'Cheskas Mare. So we make two witnesses against the other witnesses, and so the money will stay in the possession of its owner. So basically, we're not believing one set of witnesses over the other set of witnesses. But because they're saying this and they're saying that, we're not going to compel one party to have to pay another party. We say the money stays where it is. Lahavdil, possession is 9/10 of the law. Whoever has the money right now, they keep the money. Midi dahavia nischa de beishatya. The beishatya, this is like this case of the property of Barshatya. The Barshatya zabin nichse. Barshatya sold his property or sold some of his property. Also, betray Amrik Shehu Shotazabin. They said that he was in a state of mental instability. He wasn't capable. He was a state of mental incompetence when he sold it. Va'asu betray Amrik Shehu Chalim Zabin. And other two witnesses he sold it when he was coherent. Ravashi says Ukitre Lahadi Trey. Put the two witnesses against the other witnesses. Vuki Mimona B'Cheskas Barshatya. And let the money stay in the property of Barshatya. So in this case, it doesn't mean the money, but it means because the other person was going to pay him for the money, but we let the property stay in his possession. And this is only in a case where Barshatya already had a chazaka that it was his family land. But if Barshatya, who maybe sold the land in a state of mental incompetence, and maybe he sold it when he was mentally competent, but we don't know if he didn't have a chazaka that it was his father's land before him. We say that he sold it, that he bought it when he was incompetent, and he sold it when he was incompetent. So since it wasn't his to begin with, it's not his in the end. Meaning it first came from person A, then he bought it and he sold it to person B. So we're saying since it wasn't his, so whoever has it now would have it. And Amra Babao, okay, no, we have to leave it here. It's time for Mincha. So at Amra Babao, almost 20 lines down from the top.